Bootcamp podcast. I am Cheryl Ameling, the certification coordinator.
And I'm Megan Busk, the head of marketing.
And today we have Francesca Albright with us. She is one of our childbirth educators, and you're in the middle of doing your postpartum doula training. And so Francesca Albright, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
It's going to be fun.
It's going to be super fun.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Start with just telling us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Where are you from? How many kids do you have? All that.
My name is Francesca Albright. I am from a small town called Orchard, Texas. It's like less than 400 people, I think, in the whole town. I've been married for like a little over 3 years, and we have 2 sons, ages 2.5 and 1.
Awesome. That's so fun. Yeah, I'm really busy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So your story about birth and everything starts a little bit before you even had your first birth, right?
Yeah. We took Cheryl's birth bootcamp class, and that's how I kind of got started with teaching birth classes. We took the class, and I think I signed up to become an instructor before we even finished the class.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. I was like, I love this stuff.
That's great. I feel like that's usually the progress. Like people fall in love with birth as they're learning about it and kind of fall into that path. So how did you decide you didn't want to go like the traditional OB route when you got pregnant? Is it all because of your progress through birth work?
So I got pregnant late December, November of 2019, and we had a miscarriage. And the way that the OB that I was seeing at the time handled it was not great. We were engaged, we were getting married in March, and so it obviously wasn't planned, and it was a very early miscarriage, and so she kind of just made it seem like it wasn't that big of a deal. And obviously, even though it wasn't planned, it was still a really terrible thing to go through. And so that happened, and I was like, I don't want to see her again, and I really don't want to have to do the work to try and find someone who aligns with like all of the things that I want in a birth too. So someone had told me about the birth center, the Katie Birth Center, and I went to a Meet the Midwives thing and kind of just decided then that we would go. We weren't even pregnant yet. We had decided we wanted to try right when we got married. So I was like, we might as well just go and like at least have like an established kind of relationship with them. And so we did, and found out the day after we got back from our honeymoon that I was pregnant again. So
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's great.
Nice. I love that you guys like with that experience with a miscarriage, which I'm so sorry. I hate that anybody would think that having a miscarriage is just no big deal. Like it's a huge deal. And so I'm sorry that you went through that. I love that you, like, even before you were pregnant again, we're thinking we're going to do something different. Like you were being proactive and like, we're going to make different choices next time. So I love that.
Yeah. I mean,
okay. So you were planning to deliver.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go.
I'd never really thought much about birth, honestly. My mom I have 2 brothers, and my mom delivered all of us naturally in the hospital with no epidural, no induction or anything like that. And so I kind of always just thought like, well, if she can do it, I can do it, So I never really, like, I didn't know much about birth, but I kind of always just assumed that I would go unmedicated because like, why not? But that was really the whole extent I knew about it. So I don't know. I was like, well, midwife makes sense because you can't get drugs anyway. So
that's amazing. I feel like the way that birth in the world changes is by our perception of what it is. And so for you to be able to have that example is really awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so you were planning to deliver out of hospital, so at a freestanding birth center. And you said that you were in my class, which I loved. how did you guys prepare? So you took the class, like, did the midwife encourage you to take it? Was this something you sought out on your own? And was there any other preparation that you guys did to be ready for this really big thing that you guys were going to do together?
Yeah, so the birth center, one thing I really love about this birth center actually is that they do require first time moms and then moms who are delivering out of hospital for the first time to take a birth class. And so they offer a couple different ones, but birth boot camp is one of them. And it really just worked with our schedule. And so that's the one that we took. And I'm obviously very glad that we did. And then other things, I mean, I listened to a lot of podcasts throughout my pregnancy, read a couple books here and there, like mostly skimmed through a handful of them, but yeah, podcasts for sure on top of the birth class were like my biggest kind of learning points.
Mm-hmm. And how was your husband involved in any of that?
I mostly just relayed to him the information that I thought was important, like from the podcast. And then obviously he was there with the classes. So he learned, the comfort measures and different ways to support me.
Good.
Yeah.
I love that.
Our birth partners are so important.
Yeah. So tell us kind of how did your first birth go? Like give us the details.
Okay. So I knew that I didn't want to be checked at like an appointment, or I at least didn't want to like know my numbers. And so my midwife had said it was at my 40-week appointment 2 days before I was 40 weeks. And my midwife asked if I wanted to be checked. I was like, I mean, if you want to check me, like, you can, but I don't want to know any numbers. And she was like, okay, let's just check. She checked and she said, I think we'll have a baby this weekend. And so I went home and I didn't really believe that because I was a first time mom. And I was like, that doesn't happen. Like 10 days late is the average. That's what I'm expecting. And I was still working. So I was quitting my job after I had him, but it was right before Thanksgiving break. And I worked in a high school. So I was like, okay, this is Thursday. Tomorrow night we have a basketball game. And then next week I'll go up to the school when like no one's there and like pack up all my stuff. So I go Friday. I wake up Friday morning at like 4 a.m. and having contractions. I was like, oh, oh no. I was like, well, I can't work tonight. So I had to call my supervisor and that was a whole thing. She was like, oh, we kind of thought you were going to go later. I was like, yeah, I kind of thought so too, but I don't have much control. So find someone to cover. My husband took me to the school to help me pack up all my stuff. And then went home, labored at home for a while. I told my midwife what was happening, but everything was super, slow at that point. My contractions were it was like 1 an hour, maybe 2 an hour. So it was very, very spread apart. So we just kind of hung out. We watched movies, hung out on the birth ball, walked, all that kind of stuff. And went to bed I like couldn't quite sleep through them. They were getting like a little bit closer together, like probably every like 15 minutes. So like by the time that I would start to drift off, they were like another one would come and I would wake up. So my midwife told me to take, I don't remember, some sort of sleeping thing that I could take, Unisom, I think, to take that to get a couple hours of rest. So I did. I took that at like 9 p.m. I think. Fell asleep for like 4 hours, woke up at 1 a.m. and I couldn't sleep through the contractions anymore. So I think that's about when active labor had started. So I'd been in early labor, I guess, for 21 hours at that point. Wow. But I mean, yeah, I say it was a 31-hour labor, but I always like kind of clarify, like it was only 10 hours of like active labor and like the pushing stage. Like all of it was, those first 21 hours weren't like crazy intense or like awful,
Yeah.
So yeah, then things kind of picked up and I couldn't sleep through them anymore. And we were going to the birth center. It was like a 15-minute drive, but I wanted to labor at home as long as I could. So I did that. I mostly did like hands and knees position in bed, like trying to still like rest my eyes and not really get up a whole lot. And looking back now, knowing more than I knew then, I probably would get up or like tell my husband, like tell me to get up and walk around because that probably would have made things move a little bit quicker. Yeah, so I did that for a few hours. And then I called my midwife at like 6 a.m. and she was like, why don't you get up and eat some breakfast and go for a walk around the block or something, and then call me after that. And so mind you, I had been in bed this whole time for like the last like 4 or 5 hours, maybe to get up and pee every once in a while. But like as soon as I got up from my bed and walked to like the bedroom door, it was like contraction on top of contraction on top of contraction. Like it was probably every 3 minutes, just like nonstop. It took us like 10 minutes to get to the door because I just like couldn't do it. So yeah, things progressed very quickly. We did not eat. We did not go for a walk. She was like, come to the birth center. Yeah. So we did. And I think I had 4 contractions in a 15-minute drive. And it was at that moment that I was like, I never want to be in a car having contractions ever again. So if we have another baby, I'm having a home birth. I am not leaving during this ever again. But we got to the birth center. I think she said I was 8 centimeters dilated and 100% effaced, and baby was at a 0 station. So pretty good. Pretty good. I think it was 7, it was probably 8 o'clock by the time we got there. So they filled up the tub. I labored in the pool for most of the time that we were there. That's just what felt good at that point. I remember my midwife asking if she could break my water. I don't know exactly what time it was. I know it was right before I started pushing. So probably I'd been in the water for about 2.5 hours at that point, just laboring mostly on hands and knees. And then she asked if she could break my water because it was bulging. And I was like, maybe. And so she like went and tried, and it was so incredibly uncomfortable. I was like, please give me like 5 minutes and see what happens. I don't want you to do that. That felt really not good. And so sure enough, like 3 minutes later, I felt like the urge to push, and I pushed a little bit, and my bag of waters like popped. And so I was like, thank God that happened on its own and not, is that really, I don't know. Have you all ever had your waters like broken? It is, oh my gosh, she didn't even actually do it. And I was like, no.
I did. It didn't hurt.
Uncomfortable.
Yeah, mine didn't hurt. All 3 of my babies, I had my waters broken, but yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, it didn't hurt for me either. So I wonder what all was happening with that. So
especially if it was bulging, because it wouldn't. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, it was very uncomfortable. But it broke on its own, and so that was great. And then my son's heart started, I guess his heart rate started decelerating a little bit just for the position that we were in the water. So it was time to push. They moved me to the bed. I think I pushed for about 40 minutes, going back and forth between like hands and knees and like on my back. And then he was born. 40 minutes of pushing.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah. So that was my first one.
Nice.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And he was a due date baby too. So he was
that doesn't happen very often either. That's great.
And that was actually, we had finished the birth class we took with Cheryl that Sunday before. And I remember Cheryl telling, I was like, I mean, it's like a week from my due date. Like she's like, you'll be fine. You'll finish the class, whatever. And then, I expected to go at least like another week or so. And so it was 5-6 days after we finished the class, I was like, surprise, we had our baby.
Glad I got that last class in.
Yeah,
that's
snuck
amazing.
It in there.
Yeah.
So how do you feel like your preparation for like your first birth changed from when you had your second baby?
I think honestly from teaching classes, like, so I got my certification the following, he was born in November. I got the notification in July, and started teaching classes like the following November or December maybe. And I actually was already pregnant at that point. I was like, I don't know, 10 weeks pregnant or something like that. But I had started teaching classes. So I think that getting, a handful of classes under my belt and having, students ask different questions that I had never thought of. And so having to do like more research and kind of just thinking about it in different ways, I don't know that I would say I was better prepared. I think there were just different things that I knew that I didn't know before.
Yeah, I love that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think that's how we all feel like as we go throughout this process. We're all learning,
Mhm.
new things every day. And
Yeah.
yeah, it definitely can
Yeah.
go with us for sure. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your second birth and how that went?
Yeah. So again, I know that a lot of women go over their due dates, but I was like, okay, well, I had a due date baby, and a lot of moms, are pregnant for less time with their second than they were with their first. So I was expecting like the last week of, like 39 weeks, like, okay, I'm definitely gonna have a baby. And then so my due date came and I was like, what are you doing? Why are you not here yet? You should be here. Um, and so that was June 2nd. No, yes, June 2nd was his due date. And I went into labor that night, actually. So at like, I think it was like 8 p.m. I like felt like a weird crampy feeling, and I went to the bathroom and I had I had a little bit of like bloody show. And so I was like, oh, I think things are happening. And mind you, my first labor was 31 hours. So I was like, okay, this one will probably be faster, but not that much faster. And so I was like, I'm gonna go hang. And we had a home birth this time. We used the same midwife, but like I said, having contractions in the car, I was like, I don't ever want to leave the house in active labor ever again. So home birth. Um, we'd hired a doula this time. So I had told her that things were happening, probably didn't need to come anytime soon, but just to kind of let her know. And I went and hung my birth affirmations up, and I was like taking my time because I was like, oh, I'll go to sleep in like, 2 hours. Um, and of course, my son, who was 18 months at this point, was just, I guess he could tell something was going on because he would not stay asleep, like just refused to stay asleep. And my husband, it was just us at home. We hadn't called anyone yet. And so things were picking up pretty quickly after a while. And I mean, Charlie just kept waking up and waking up and waking up. And I was like, I need you. Like, I need him to figure it out because I need you here to help me through these. And so, I mean, that had happened for, I guess, a couple hours, and things were, picking up pretty quick. The first few contractions were like 30 minutes apart. And then they were from like 30 minutes apart to like 15 minutes apart pretty quickly. And then from there, it progressed, pretty quickly. I would say probably by like 11 o'clock. So like 3 hours into it, they were like 5 minutes apart pretty consistently. And so we had called my mom to come help with Charlie. And so she got there, just kept him upstairs. Basically, he was like in and out of sleep the whole night. But she didn't let him like come out. And so I called my midwife around 1, I think like 1 in the morning, and my doula around the same time. And obviously, so when I hired the doula, I was like, she's going to be here for so much longer than the midwife will, which is going to be awesome. And she actually showed up like 10 minutes after the midwife because she was a little bit further away. But all I wanted to do was get in the water. And so I was like, I don't care who shows up. I just want someone to like tell me that I can get in the tub. Which again, looking back, I should have just gotten in the tub. I don't know why I was like, I have to wait. But so my midwife got there around 2 a.m. And I don't remember, I think I was 80% effaced and like 7 centimeters dilated. So things were definitely like, progressing, but there was still, she said his head was asynclitic. And so I guess that was kind of preventing him from, getting through the birth canal pretty easily. So that caused some problems. I really wanted to be in the water the whole time, but they were like, we really need you to do these different kind of positions. I had to do like an inverted position on the couch for like 5 contractions, and that was terrible. And then they tried like a thing where they lift up my belly while I'm having contractions, and I have to kind of like sink into their hands and different stuff on the bed. And so his head finally turned after I don't even know how long. And I was able to get in the water again, which felt amazing. And so my doula was doing, I don't know, I always tell my students now, like the hip squeeze, they're like, this feels kind of silly to like practice it, when you're not having like a lot of discomfort down there. I'm like, the hip squeeze saves me in labor. Like that is the only thing I want. All I want is you to squeeze my hips together during a contraction. So that was awesome. She did that pretty much the whole time, for like 3 hours straight. And then I remember feeling kind of pushy. Like I was like, I feel like I need to push, but when I'm pushing, it doesn't feel right. Like it doesn't really feel like it's a productive push. And so my midwife was like, do you have to go to the bathroom? I was like, maybe. So I went and I tried to go to the bathroom. And like, nothing happened. And I was like, no. And she was like, okay, do you mind if I check you? I was like, sure. And so she checked and I had a cervical lip. And so, I know now that it is a variation of normal, and a lot of times it'll resolve on its own, but I was kind of scared because I was wanting to push, and like my body was telling me to push, and I was like, and I know that can be bad because then you can rip your cervix, and that doesn't sound like something that I want. So she'd asked if she could move it. So she moved it, and that was at 4:57 a.m. and he was born at 5.
Wow.
So she moved the cervical lip and he was born in like 2 minutes.
That's all that was keeping him in there.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, man, we should have done this like an hour ago. Yeah. So
Awesome.
yeah, my only regret with that birth was not going to sleep at like 8 o'clock whenever I had my first contraction.
Yep.
I was like, I should have gone to sleep, but I was like, surely we have like 20 hours, so I'll just hang my affirmations. I didn't look at my affirmations a single time.
Yeah.
But they were there. They were there just in case you needed them.
Yeah, I was planning on like recording it too. I had like a tripod and everything set up, but I was timing my contractions at first and my phone was dying. And so like by the time like I called the midwife to come over, I was like, I'm just gonna plug my phone in, and I completely forgot to like set anything up. So I was like, oh, I bought this tripod like specifically to record my birth, and nothing.
Well, the thing is that you were birthing, and so setting up a tripod and setting it like that should have been somebody else's job. But
yeah, I should have delegated. I should have told my husband.
Yeah. For sure.
Oh well.
Oh well.
I feel like there's always those little things that we plan for, and then it's like out the window because you don't tell anyone else, and it's just that's how birth goes.
Yeah.
That was another thing I told my husband. I told my husband after the fact. I was like, next time. I should have told him, again, this is something I should have told him, but I was like, all I want is for my contacts to be in. Like, I just don't want because my glasses didn't fit very well. And so I was like, I'm gonna be sweaty. They're gonna be like falling down my face. And so I want my contacts in. But I didn't tell anybody else. And so my glasses were on the whole time. I was like, I'm not getting out to put I wasn't thinking about it, but I was like, next time I'm gonna tell my husband. He needs to like gently remind me to go put my contacts in.
Yeah. That's funny. I love that. So how do you feel about your births like as a whole? Like how do you reflect on them? Like how do you feel about them?
I love them. I think that I'm very grateful to have birthed the way that I did. And I tell my husband this all the time, like I feel very lucky to have, the miscarriage obviously was hard and not something that we would like want to go through again. But I think that it did help. Mm-hmm. It helped kind of open my eyes to things, things that I wouldn't have loved about being in a hospital and with an obstetrician. And so I'm thankful for it in a way. Because I know that plenty of people have great births and great experiences in the hospital, but it is just not something that I think that I would enjoy. And I also think with, both of with the heart rate decelerating, my midwife told me that they likely, if in a hospital, probably would have like rushed me to the OR and let me maybe like labor a little bit longer in the OR, but like been there just in case we had to do an emergency C-section. With my first, and then with my second, I feel like just knowing what I know about the hospital, an asynclitic baby, causing a lot of problems and a lot of discomfort. I probably would have been pushed to have an epidural, and just knowing what we know about the cascade of interventions, I'm just very glad that I have a midwife who believes in women's bodies.
Well, it sounded like she I mean, she obviously knew all the things, like midwives do, and they know like, let's try this. Okay, this isn't working. Let's try this. And it worked for you,
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and she was very hands off, especially with the second one which I really appreciated. She kind of paid attention to like the sounds that I was making. And so like when because I had tried, I guess I'd made like a grunting noise, like I said, when I was trying to, like, my body felt pushy, but it felt wrong. And she had asked me, I didn't just say like, oh, I think I'm pushing, but it feels weird. She had asked like, do you feel pushy? And so she could just tell, it's just very different. So she just knew something was maybe off and prompted me instead of just waiting for me to say like something's wrong.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah. She's one of my favorite midwives, just throwing that out there. Do you have like any specific moments that are like your favorite, or like, did you have like that I did it moment, or like, do you have any specific things that stick out in your mind of like favorite moments of either birth?
I think like just those last few minutes, especially with my second, the last few minutes of pushing. I remember after she moved the cervix so that I could push, I have a video of me saying like, I can't. I've done it before. Like, I have pushed a baby out before, and I teach these birth classes. Like, I know in my head and in my heart that like I can do it. And I still had those doubts. And then so like, 3 minutes later when he was born, I was like, oh my God, I did it again. That's just, I don't know, it's such an awesome feeling.
I love that.
Yeah.
It is an awesome feeling. I agree.
Well, tell us, is there anything, do you have a social media, website, anywhere we can find you?
Yes, I'm not super active on social media, but I do have my Instagram is Liberated Labor and Life. And then same thing on Facebook. And then my website is liberatedlnd.com. And I can, send you that so you can put it in the notes or whatever y'all do with that.
Thank you. That'd be great.
Yeah. Well, thank you for spending time with us and sharing your stories. And I love everything that you said. I love that you had these really amazing experiences, and and then took that into like a career, and now you're teaching classes and sharing this information with other families and helping them have amazing births too. It's really the best job in the whole world.
It really is. I love it.
Yeah, it's really great. So, all right. Well, thank you so much. And join us again next week for more birth stories. Bye, everybody.